It was a shocking turn of events that no one could have predicted. Tatum, the beloved child of reality TV stars Khloe and Tristan, had always been the picture of health and vibrance. But a tragic accident one fateful day changed everything, sending the family into a tailspin of fear and despair. It all started when Tatum, then 5 years old, wandered away from the family's backyard during a pool party. In the commotion and chaos of the event, no one noticed the young boy was missing until it was too late. Tatum had fallen into the deep end of the pool, and by the time he was pulled from the water, he was not breathing. The harrowing moments that followed were a blur of panic and frantic efforts to resuscitate the child. Khloe, beside herself with terror, watched helplessly as the paramedics worked tirelessly to revive her son. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Tatum's heartbeat was restored, but the damage had been done. The young boy was rushed to the hospital, where doctors delivered the devastating news. Tatum had suffered severe cardiac arrest due to the lack of oxygen during the drowning incident. His heart had been deprived of blood and oxygen for too long, and now he was facing the very real possibility of heart failure. Khloe and Tristan were devastated. Their world had been turned upside down in a matter of moments, and they were now facing the unimaginable, the possibility of losing their beloved child. The weeks that followed were a roller coaster of emotions, as the family clung to the hope that Tatum would pull through. Despite the best efforts of the medical team, Tatum's condition continued to deteriorate. His heart was weakening, and the only viable option was a risky and complex heart surgery. Khloe and Tristan were forced to make the agonizing decision to proceed with the operation, knowing that the stakes were high and the outcome was uncertain. As the day of the surgery approached, Khloe's anxiety reached a fever pitch. She had already lost so much: the carefree days of her family's childhood, the innocence of her son's laughter, the simple joy of watching Tatum grow and thrive. The thought of losing him now, after everything they had been through, was almost too much to bear. On the morning of the surgery, Khloe was a bundle of nerves. She paced the hospital corridors, her mind racing with 1,000 what-ifs and a deep, abiding fear that she might never see her son's bright eyes again. Tristan tried his best to comfort her, but even his reassuring presence couldn't ease the weight of the impending uncertainty. When the time came for Tatum to be wheeled into the operating room, Khloe was overcome with emotion. She hugged her son tightly, whispering words of love and encouragement before reluctantly letting him go. As the doctors and nurses prepared Tatum for the delicate procedure, Khloe and Tristan could only watch and wait, their hearts pounding with a mix of hope and dread. The surgery itself was a tense and nerve-wracking ordeal, lasting several hours. Khloe and Tristan kept a vigil by the phone, waiting for any updates from the surgical team. Each minute felt like an eternity, and the couple found themselves caught in a whirlwind of emotions: fear, anxiety, and a desperate need for good news. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the call came. The surgery had been a success, and Tatum was now in the recovery room, his vital signs stable and his heart functioning better than it had in weeks. Khloe let out a sob of relief, the weight of her anxiety finally lifting from her shoulders. But the emotional journey was far from over. As Tatum slowly recovered in the hospital, Khloe found herself grappling with a new wave of emotions, a mix of overwhelming gratitude, profound relief, and a deep, lingering trauma that refused to go away. The once bubbly and carefree Khloe was now a shadow of her former self. She spent hours by Tatum's bedside, holding his hand and watching him sleep, her eyes constantly searching for any sign of distress or discomfort. The slightest change in his vital signs would send her into a panic, and she found herself unable to leave his side for fear of something going wrong. Tristan did his best to support his wife, but even his calming presence couldn't fully alleviate Khloe's anxiety. She was consumed by a deep, gnawing fear that the nightmare might not be over, that Tatum's recovery could be derailed at any moment. As the days turned into weeks, Khloe's emotional state continued to deteriorate. She became withdrawn and short-tempered, lashing out at the medical staff and even at Tristan when he tried to encourage her to take a break. The once vibrant reality star was now a shell of her former self, her spark dimmed by the weight of her trauma. Tristan knew that he had to do something to help his wife, but he was at a loss as to what to do. He tried to convince Khloe to seek professional help, to talk to a therapist, and work through the emotional turmoil she was experiencing. But Khloe was resistant, insisting that she needed to be by Tatum's side every moment of every day. It was during one of Tatum's follow-up appointments that the true extent of Khloe's emotional breakdown became clear. As the doctor delivered the good news that Tatum's heart was healing well and that he was making steady progress, Khloe suddenly broke down in tears. The floodgates had opened, and Khloe found herself unable to hold back the emotions that had been building up inside her. She wept uncontrollably, her body shaking with the force of her sobs. Tristan rushed to her side, holding her close and murmuring words of comfort, but Khloe was inconsolable. It was a heartbreaking sight, a once strong and resilient woman reduced to a trembling, emotional wreck. The doctors and nurses were taken aback by the intensity of Khloe's reaction, and they quickly ushered the family to a private room to give them some space. In the quiet of the room, Khloe finally opened up about the depth of her anguish. She spoke of the constant fear that had gripped her since the drowning incident, the constant worry that Tatum's recovery could be derailed at any moment. She confessed to the guilt she felt, the nagging sense that she had somehow failed as a mother by not being able to protect her son. Tristan listened intently, his heart breaking for his wife. He knew that the emotional toll of the past few weeks had been immense, and he vowed to do whatever it took to help Khloe heal. Together, they agreed that it was time for Khloe to seek professional help, to work through the trauma and anxiety that had consumed her. In the weeks that followed, Khloe began to attend regular therapy sessions, delving deep into the emotional wounds that had been inflicted by the harrowing ordeal. It was a slow and sometimes painful process, but with the support of her husband, her family, and her therapist, Khloe began to slowly rebuild her shattered sense of self. Tatum's recovery, too, continued to progress, and Khloe found herself slowly regaining a sense of hope and optimism. She still carried the scars of her emotional breakdown, but she was determined to emerge from this experience stronger and more resilient than ever before. As Tatum's health continued to improve, Khloe's own healing journey became more apparent. She began to laugh and smile again, her eyes shining with a renewed sense of joy and wonder. She knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on, with the love and support of her family by her side.